What happens when the weakest wolf in the pack saves a life no one else dared to protect? For Alara Winterthorn, life had always been measured in whispers and downcast eyes. As an Omega in the Silvercrest pack, she existed on the margins, invisible during hunts, forgotten at feasts, tolerated only because pack law demanded it. Her scent, a gentle weave of lavender and morning dew, barely registered among the dominant pheromones of alphas and betas. She served in the pack kitchens, kept her quarters spotless, and dreamed of nothing more than survival. But when Alpha Theron Blackridge stood before the entire pack during the Harvest Moon ceremony and rejected her as his fated mate, tearing their bond apart with a single cruel declaration, everything changed. And what happens next, no one was prepared for. Because Alara didn't die in the wilderness that night. She didn't freeze. She didn't fade into nothing. She transformed into something the werewolf world had only whispered about in ancient lullabies. Something they thought was myth. The matriarch had returned. The great hall of Silvercrest was ablaze with torchlight, the flames casting dancing shadows across stone walls that had witnessed 1,000 ceremonies. Every member of the pack had gathered, their bodies pressed close, the air thick with anticipation and the mingled scents of hundreds of wolves. Alara stood at the very back, as she always did, her thin frame nearly hidden behind broader shoulders and taller bodies. The scent of excitement hung heavy, sharp pine and crackling energy, the collective anticipation of a pack witnessing destiny unfold. Tonight was the mate pairing ceremony, an event held once every 5 years when the harvest moon reached its peak. The moon goddess herself was said to attend, weaving invisible threads between souls meant to complete one another. Already 3 pairs had been announced, each alpha claiming their chosen, with a mark that glowed briefly on the recipient's neck, a sacred symbol of eternal bonding. Alara hadn't expected to be called. She never expected anything. So when Alpha Theron Blackridge, tall, powerful, his scent a commanding mixture of forest embers and ozone, turned his steel-gray eyes toward the back of the hall, Alara thought he was looking past her, through her, the way everyone always did. Alara Winterthorn. His voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk. The hall fell silent. Every head turned. Hundreds of eyes found her, and the weight of their collective stare made her knees weak. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "Come forward," Theron commanded, and pack law compelled her feet to obey. The crowd parted reluctantly, their expressions ranging from confusion to disgust. An Omega. Their alpha's mate was an Omega. Impossible. Offensive. Wrong. Alara's heart hammered against her ribs as she made the endless walk to the raised platform where Theron stood. His beta, a broad-shouldered man named Garrett, whose scent carried notes of tobacco and leather, watched her approach with barely concealed contempt. She climbed the 3 steps to the platform, her legs trembling. Up close, Theron was even more imposing. 6.5 feet of pure dominance, his dark hair swept back, his jaw carved from granite. The scent of him should have been comforting to a fated mate. Instead, it felt like standing too close to a lightning storm. "The bond," Theron announced to the crowd, his voice devoid of warmth, "has declared this Omega as my destined mate." Gasps rippled through the hall. Someone laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. Alara's wolf stirred within her for the first time in years, a tiny flutter of hope. Could it be true? Could the moon goddess truly have? However, Theron continued, and that single word shattered everything. His eyes, when they met hers, were cold as winter steel. "I reject this bond. I reject this fate. I reject you." Time stopped. The bond that had barely begun to form, that gossamer thread connecting her soul to his, went taut. Then it snapped. Pain exploded through Alara's chest like a physical blow. She gasped, doubling over as agony radiated outward from her heart. It felt like every nerve in her body was being shredded, like her very essence was being torn apart and scattered to the winds. The scent of her distress, wildflowers turning acrid, morning dew evaporating into ash, filled the air. "No," she whispered, though the word held no power. No alpha had ever been stopped by an Omega's plea. "You are weak," Theron said, each word a hammer blow. Your bloodline is diluted. Your wolf is barely present. I will not shackle myself to inadequacy when I could unite with strength." He gestured, and a woman stepped forward from the crowd. Selene Nightshade, a high-ranking beta with cascading black hair and a scent sharp with cinnamon and iron. Beautiful, powerful, everything Alara was not. Selene's smile was pure venom as she took her place beside Theron. "By pack law," Theron declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "I invoke my right as Alpha to refuse a fated bond and choose a mate of merit." He turned to Selene, and even through her pain, Alara saw the calculation in the gesture. This wasn't love. This was politics. "Selene Nightshade, I claim you as my chosen mate." The mark appeared on Selene's neck, not the ethereal glow of a fated bond, but a darker brand, chosen, not destined. Alara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The pain in her chest was nothing compared to the humiliation of standing before her entire pack while they watched her be discarded like trash. "Remove her," Theron ordered, already dismissing her existence. "Cast her beyond pack borders. Let the wilderness judge her worth." "No," the voice came from the crowd, her mother Vera pushing forward. Her father Marcus tried to hold her back, his face pale. "Please, Alpha, she's our daughter. Let her stay in." "The Omega quarters? Let her—" "Your daughter," Theron interrupted, his tone flat, "is no longer pack. The bond rejection severs her ties. She has 1 hour to leave Silvercrest territory, or she will be treated as a rogue and hunted accordingly." 2 guards grabbed Alara's arms, their grip bruising. She didn't resist. What would be the point? Her legs barely worked as they dragged her down from the platform and through the crowd. Faces blurred past. Some showed pity, most showed relief that it wasn't them. A few showed savage satisfaction. At the great doors, they released her roughly. She stumbled, catching herself against the stone archway. 1 hour, one of the guards said, not unkindly. "The blizzard's getting worse. You should head south, try to reach human lands." Alara nodded numbly. She turned toward the Omega quarters to gather what little she owned, a cloak, a small bag, her mother's old journals. But when she reached the modest building where she'd spent her life, both her parents stood blocking the door. "You can't come in," her father said, and there was something in his voice, fear, guilt. His scent, usually warm cedar, had gone sharp with anxiety. "Papa?" Alara's voice broke. "I just need my things. I'll be gone, I promise. No." Her mother's face was streaked with tears, but her stance was firm. "You don't understand. You can't take anything. You have to leave. Now. Quickly." "Why?" The word came out as a sob. "What did I do? Why does everyone?" "Because we made sure you'd be weak," her mother cried, the words bursting out like a confession too long held. "We bound your power when you were born. We had to. The prophecy said you'd bring destruction, and we couldn't. We loved you, but we couldn't risk." Her father pulled Vera back, his eyes wild. "She doesn't need to know. She just needs to go." Bound her power? Prophecy? None of it made sense, but Alara had no time to process it. Already she could hear the howls, beginning. The pack hunt, starting early, eager to chase her down if she wasn't gone by the deadline. She ran. The blizzard hit her like a wall the moment she crossed the pack border. Wind howled, driving snow so thick she couldn't see 3 feet ahead. Her thin dress, the ceremonial gown she'd worn to what should have been the happiest night of her life, offered no protection against the cold. South, the guard had said, toward human lands. But which way was south when the whole world had become a whiteout? Alara stumbled forward, her bare feet already going numb. The pain in her chest from the severed bond pulsed with each heartbeat, a constant reminder of her worthlessness. Her wolf, that distant presence she'd barely ever felt, had gone completely silent. She was truly alone. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time lost all meaning in the white void. Alara fell more than she walked, crawling when she couldn't stand, the snow soaking through her clothes until she couldn't feel anything anymore. This is it, she thought, strangely calm. This is how it ends. A dark shape loomed ahead, the ruins of an old barn, half collapsed but offering at least some shelter from the wind. Alara crawled inside, her body shaking so violently she couldn't control it. She curled into the driest corner she could find, pulling her arms tight around herself. "I'm sorry," she whispered to no one. To the moon goddess, maybe. To whatever she might have been if they hadn't bound her power, if she hadn't been born wrong. The cold crept deeper. Her shaking slowed, then stopped. That was bad, she knew distantly. When you stopped shaking, you were dying. Good, she thought. Let it be quick. Her eyes drifted closed. She didn't see the shadows moving outside the barn, didn't hear the soft padding of enormous paws in the snow, didn't sense the 10 massive forms surrounding the ruins, their eyes glowing in the darkness, protecting, waiting. The matriarch had been found. Warmth. That was the first thing Alara became aware of. Impossible, blessed warmth. She should be dead, should be frozen solid in that abandoned barn. Instead, she felt wrapped in living heat, surrounded by it, cradled by it. Her eyes fluttered open and immediately went wide. Wolves, enormous wolves, their bodies pressed close around her, sharing their heat, not just one or two. One, she counted, her frost-addled mind struggling to process what she was seeing. 2, 3, 4 massive bodies, each easily twice the size of the largest pack alpha she'd ever seen. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 giant wolves surrounding her, their fur ranging from silver white to midnight black. Their eyes, when they met hers, glowing with an otherworldly intelligence that made her breath catch. This wasn't a pack. Packs didn't move like this, didn't feel like this. The scent of them was ancient and powerful. Aged oak and winter snow, storm clouds and deep earth, each distinct but harmonizing into something that made her very soul resonate. The largest of them, a massive silver-gray wolf with eyes like molten gold, sat directly in front of her. Even sitting, his head was level with hers. His scent, aged oak, winter snow, pine, storm, wrapped around her like a protective cloak. He shouldn't exist. Wolves this size belonged to legends, to the old stories grandmothers told to frighten children into behaving. The silver wolf's form began to shimmer. Alara tried to scramble back, but her body wouldn't obey. She was too weak, too frozen, too overwhelmed. The shift was like nothing she'd ever witnessed. Smooth as water, silent as snowfall, the massive wolf's form flowed and reshaped until a man knelt before her. He was older than Theron, perhaps 40, with silver threading through dark hair. Scars crossed his bare chest, claw marks, bite marks, the evidence of 100 battles survived. His eyes, still that liquid gold, held centuries of knowledge. "Easy," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "You're safe." "Who?" Alara's voice came out as a croak. "What?" "My name is Kyle Stormborn," he said, reaching slowly for a cloak that had been draped over a broken beam. He wrapped it around his shoulders with practiced ease. "I am the commander of the Shadow Guard, and we've been waiting for you." Waiting? Nothing made sense. "I'm nobody. I'm just—" "You are Alara Winterthorn," Kyle interrupted gently. "And you are the matriarch reborn. The prophecy spoke of you." Prophecy, the word her mother had screamed. "I don't understand." "You will." Kyle settled back, his posture radiating calm authority. Around them, the other 9 wolves remained in their shifted forms, still providing warmth and protection. "Your parents told you they bound your power, yes?" Alara nodded, the memory fresh and painful. "They bound it when you were an infant," Kyle continued, "because an oracle came to them and spoke of what you would become. Not a destroyer despite what they feared, but something infinitely more powerful than their small minds could comprehend. They were afraid, so they crippled you, locked away your true nature and let you suffer as an omega while your real wolf slept in magical chains." "My real wolf?" Alara whispered. "Your wolf is awake now." Kyle's golden eyes gleamed. "The mate bond rejection shattered the binding. Your parents designed it to last forever, but they didn't account for the agony of a severed, fated bond. That pain broke through magical chains that should have held for a lifetime." Alara's hand went to her chest, to where the bond had snapped. The pain was still there, a dull ache, but beneath it, something else stirred, something vast and ancient and hungry to emerge. "She's waking," she breathed, feeling her wolf for the first time truly, not the distant, suppressed presence she'd known before, but a powerful entity that filled her entire being. "Yes," Kyle said. "And when she fully awakens, When you complete your first true transformation, the werewolf world will never be the same. One of the other wolves, a pure black female whose scent carried notes of jasmine and steel, shifted forms as well. She was younger than Kale, battle-scarred like him, her dark eyes fierce with loyalty. "I am Nyx," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality. "Second of the Shadow Guard, we are 10, the last of an ancient order sworn to protect the matriarch line. We have waited 300 years for your birth." 300, Alara shook her head weakly. "This can't be real. I'm just an Omega. I'm nothing special." "You were never an Omega," Kyle's voice was firm. "You were a goddess trapped in mortal chains. But the chains are broken now, Alara, and once you transform, once you step into your true power, you'll understand everything." "I don't know how," Alara admitted, fear threading through her voice. "I've barely ever shifted. When I try, it's painful and wrong and—" "Because you were trying to shift into a suppressed form," Nyx explained gently. "Your body knew you were meant to be more, and it fought against the limitations. There will be no pain this time. Only awakening." "But first," Kyle said, "you need to understand what you are. May I tell you the prophecy?" Alara nodded, still trembling, not from cold now, but from the enormity of what was happening. Kyle's voice took on a rhythmic quality, like he was reciting from ancient memory. "When the moon bleeds silver and the old bonds break, the matriarch will rise from sorrow's wake. She will be marked by suffering, crowned by the wild, born of magic, hidden as a child. She will come when packs forget the old ways, when strength means cruelty and love betrays. 10 will guard her, sworn by moon and blood, and her howl will wake the earth from its mud. The matriarch returns, not to destroy but mend, to lead the lost wolves home again." The words resonated in Alara's chest, harmonizing with that awakening presence inside her. Her wolf surged in response, and for the first time she heard a voice that was both hers and not hers, ancient, powerful, feminine beyond measure. "Sister," the voice purred. "I've waited so long to meet you properly." Alara gasped. She's talking to me." "Good," Kyle said with a slight smile. "That's very good. What does she say?" "Tell them," her wolf commanded, "that I am done sleeping. Tell them it's time to remember what we are." "She says it's time," Alara whispered. "Time to remember." "Then let us help you remember," Kyle said, standing and offering his hand. "Let us help you transform." Alara took his hand. His grip was warm, steady, anchoring her to reality as everything she'd ever known dissolved around her. The other 8 Shadow Guard members shifted back to human form one by one, each introducing themselves. Riker, a mountain of a man with auburn hair and a EEO scent like burning cedar. Thora, lean and lethal with platinum blonde hair. Finn and Fenris, twin brothers with matching copper eyes. Cassia, whose scent carried honey and lightning. Drake, silent and dark. Arya, small and fierce. Magnus, ancient even among these ageless warriors. 10 guardians, 10 legends made flesh, and they all knelt before her. "Matriarch," they said in unison, "we are yours to command." "I'm not," Alara started, but her wolf cut her off. "You are. You always have been. Now let me show you." The transformation began without Alara consciously willing it. Her body knew what to do, had always known, had just been prevented from doing it. It didn't hurt. Instead, it felt like the most profound relief of her entire life, like taking the first breath after nearly drowning, like stepping from darkness into sunlight, like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Her bones didn't crack or snap. They flowed, restructuring themselves with liquid grace. She gasped as her spine lengthened, her limbs extended, power flooding through channels that had been dammed for 20 years. Fur emerged across her skin, not the patchy, painful sprouting she'd experienced in her failed attempts before, but a wave of silver white that spread like moonlight over water. It was soft and thick and gleamed with an ethereal glow. Her senses exploded outward. She could smell everything, the distinct scent signature of each guard member, the pine trees miles away, the rabbit hiding in its burrow beneath the snow, the change in the air pressure that meant the blizzard was ending. She could hear heartbeats, breathing, the whisper of snowflakes landing on branches. And she grew. Larger than any alpha, larger than she'd thought possible. Her paws were massive, her shoulders broad and powerful, her tail thick and magnificent. When she raised her head, she stood taller than Kale in his shifted form, and he was the largest wolf she'd seen before this moment. Energy crackled around her like visible starlight, silver and ethereal, dancing across her fur in patterns that resembled ancient runes. Her eyes, she could feel them glowing, see the silver light they cast on the snow around her. Yes, her wolf purred. This is who we are. This is who we've always been. Alara opened her jaws and released the howl building in her chest. The sound shook the very foundations of the earth. It rolled across the landscape like thunder, like prophecy made audible, like the voice of the moon goddess herself. Birds burst from trees, small animals fled in primal terror, and in Silvercrest, miles away, every wolf in the pack froze as the sound reached them, a call that resonated in their very souls, ancient and undeniable. When the howl faded, Alara stood in the snow, her massive form radiating power. The 10 Shadow Guard members had shifted back to their wolf forms and stood around her, their eyes glowing with fierce pride. Kyle's voice echoed in her mind, the mental link of a pack, but different, older, more intimate than anything she'd experienced. She is the matriarch, he projected, his mental voice resonating with triumph. She is returned, the old blood wakens, the true alpha rises, and Alara, feeling her wolf settle fully into her bones at last, felt something she'd never experienced before. Power, not over others, not the cruel dominance she'd seen in Theron and his ilk, but power over herself, power to choose, power to become. She was no longer Alara the Omega, she was Alara the matriarch, and her reign had only just begun. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of discovery and growth. Kyle and the Shadow Guard took her deeper into the wilderness, far from pack territories, to a hidden valley where ancient ruins spoke of a time when the matriarch line had ruled with wisdom and compassion. Here, surrounded by crumbling stone monuments and weathered statues of massive wolves, Alara learned, to harness the power that now coursed through her veins. Shifting became as natural as breathing. She could flow between forms in a heartbeat, barely needing to think about it. Her human form had changed too. She stood taller, her frame filling out with muscle and grace, her scent deepening into something rich and complex that made even the ancient guard members pause in appreciation. But the physical transformations were nothing compared to the abilities that emerged. Focus on Nyx, Kyle instructed one morning as they stood in a clearing. Feel the bond between you. Not a mate bond, but a pack bond. Older, stronger. Alara closed her eyes, reaching out with senses she was still learning to name. She could feel Nyx's presence like a warm flame in her awareness, steady, fierce, loyal. And beneath that, pain. Old pain, a wound that had never fully healed. Without thinking, Alara let her power flow toward it, wrapping around the injury like silver light. She felt resistance at first, scar tissue both physical and emotional, but her wolf knew what to do. Gently, patiently, the healing energy seeped into the damaged places. Nyx gasped, her hand flying to her left shoulder. The old blade wound. I've carried it for 50 years. It's gone. Alara opened her eyes, swaying slightly. The healing had drained her, but it had also filled her with profound satisfaction. Empathic healing, Kale murmured, awe coloring his normally controlled voice. The texts spoke of it, but I'd never seen it done. You felt her pain and mended it. I didn't know I could, Alara admitted. There's much you can do that you don't know yet, Arya said, approaching with a rare smile. The matriarch line was said to command wolves through will alone. Perhaps we should test that? They tested it. Alara learned that when she focused her intent, she could project commands that bypassed conscious thought, not mind control, but a compelling suggestion that was nearly impossible to resist. The guard submitted willingly, but they assured her that even against an unwilling subject, her commands would hold weight. But use it sparingly, Magnus warned, his gravelly voice serious. Power like that can corrupt. The difference between a tyrant and a leader is restraint. Alara took the lesson to heart. She trained with Riker in combat, learning that her size and power could be tempered with precision. She studied ancient texts with Magnus, learning pack history and law that had been forgotten by modern wolves. She hunted with Thora and the twins, learning to move silently despite her massive form. And with Kyle. With Kyle, she learned what it meant to trust someone completely. He was patient when she struggled, firm when she needed pushing, gentle when doubt crept in. His scent, that perfect blend of aged oak, winter snow, pine, and storm, became her anchor. When nightmares of rejection and abandonment woke her in the night, it was Kale who sat with her, his presence solid and unwavering. "You're afraid of caring for me," Alara said one evening as they sat by the fire. The rest of the guard had given them privacy, taking watch positions around the perimeter. Kyle's golden eyes reflected the firelight. "I'm afraid of what it means," he admitted. "I've lived for centuries, Alara. I've watched the world change, seen empires rise and fall. I swore an oath to protect the matriarch, to serve without personal attachment. But you—" "I'm not asking you to break your oath," Alara said softly. "I'm saying that maybe the bond we're forming is part of what I need. Not a fated bond, not destiny forcing us together, but choice, mutual respect, love freely given." Kyle was silent for a long moment. Then he reached out, taking her hand in his scarred one. "A chosen mate," he murmured. "The texts never forbid it. They only warned against the complication of fated bonds for those sworn to guard." "Then choose me," Alara whispered, "if you want to. Only if you want to." Kyle's answer was to pull her close, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that tasted of possibility and promise. When they parted, his scent had shifted slightly, intertwining with hers in a way that spoke of commitment, not a magical bond, something better, a partnership chosen with clear eyes and open hearts. Days turned to weeks. Alara grew stronger, more confident, more certain of her place in the world. The Shadow Guard became her family in ways her blood relatives had never been. They laughed together, trained together, shared stories around fires that burned long into the night. But the peace couldn't last forever. They all knew it was only a matter of time before the outside world found them. The scout was young and terrified, his scent acrid with fear as he burst into Silvercrest's great hall. "Alpha," he gasped, dropping to his knees before Theron. "I found her. I found the Omega." Theron, who had been reviewing territory maps with his chosen mate Selene, went very still. "Speak plainly. Alara Winterthorn. She's alive. And she's not what we thought. She's changed, huge, powerful, and she has guardians, massive wolves, bigger than any I've ever seen. 10 of them." Selene's hand tightened on Theron's arm, her scent spiking with cinnamon and blood, the smell of her ambition and cruelty. "Impossible. She was an Omega. She should have frozen to death the night you cast her out." "I saw her," the scout insisted. "In the Forbidden Valley. She transformed right in front of me, and she glows, Alpha. Her eyes burn silver. The ground shook when she howled." Theron's jaw clenched. For weeks he'd tried to ignore the gnawing sensation in his chest. Guilt, perhaps, or simply the discomfort of knowing he'd condemned someone to death. He'd told himself it was necessary, that the pack needed a strong Luna, not a weak Omega who could barely shift. But if she'd somehow survived, if she'd somehow transformed into something powerful. "Rally the war party," he commanded. 20 of our best warriors. We leave at dawn." "To do what?" his beta Garrett asked carefully. "To bring her back," Theron said. "If she's truly powerful, she belongs to Silvercrest. She's still pack-born. We have claim over her." "You rejected her," Garrett pointed out. "You severed the bond." "I rejected a weak Omega," Theron countered. "If she's something else now, then we renegotiate." Selene's eyes flashed dangerously, but she said nothing. Her carefully constructed position as chosen mate suddenly felt less secure. The war party assembled with brutal efficiency. 20 wolves, all seasoned fighters, armed and ready. They moved as a pack, following the scouts' trail toward the Forbidden Valley. They found Alara and her guard 3 days later. The valley was beautiful in the late afternoon light, snow-covered peaks surrounding a meadow where ancient stone pillars stood like silent witnesses to history. Alara stood in her human form at the center, her silver-white hair flowing loose, her posture radiating quiet confidence. The 10 members of the Shadow Guard flanked her, still in human form, but their power unmistakable. Theron's war party emerged from the tree line, and immediately Alara's enhanced senses registered their arrival. She didn't run, didn't cower. She simply waited. Theron shifted to human form, standing at the front of his warriors, his scent, forest, embers, ozone, steel, washed over the meadow, and Alara was distantly pleased to note it no longer affected her at all. The severed bond was truly dead. "Alara," Theron called out, his voice carrying across the space between them. "You've survived, changed. I can admit when I've made an error in judgment." "An error in judgment?" Alara's voice was calm, almost amused. "Is that what you call condemning your fated mate to death?" "I call it poor information," Theron countered. "I was told you were weak. Clearly, that was false. Come back to Silvercrest. Take your rightful place as Luna. The pack needs strength like yours." Beside him, Selene stiffened, her scent turning sharp with fury. Alara laughed, a sound like silver bells and distant thunder. "You think I would return to a pack that cast me out, that I would accept a mate who rejected me publicly? Theron Blackridge, you understand nothing." "I understand power," Theron said, his voice hardening, "and I understand that you are pack-born. By law, you belong to Silvercrest." "No," Kale said, stepping forward, his golden eyes blazing. "She belongs to herself. She is the matriarch reborn. She is bound to no pack law, for she exists above such mortal constructs." "Matriarch?" Theron scoffed. "That's a children's story." "Then I suppose you're about to learn that some stories are true," Alara said softly. Selene, who had been seething silently, finally snapped. "You dare speak to an alpha like that? You're nothing but a weak—" "Omega, who got lucky!" She shifted in a blur of motion, her wolf form, sleek and dark, scented with cinnamon and iron, launching toward Alara with claws extended and fangs bared. The Shadow Guard tensed to intervene, but Alara held up a hand, stopping them. She didn't shift. She simply caught Selene mid-leap with one hand, her fingers closing around the attacking wolf's throat. Selene struggled, snarling and snapping, but Alara's grip was immovable. "You chose ambition over honor," Alara said, her voice carrying across the meadow with supernatural clarity. "You encouraged cruelty, rewarded betrayal, and stepped over a dying girl to claim power you never earned." With a casual flick of her wrist, Alara threw Selene across the clearing. The dark wolf hit the ground hard, skidding through snow before coming to a stop at Theron's feet. "Now," Alara said, "let me show you what I am." The transformation was instantaneous and breathtaking. One moment she stood human, the next she towered over them all in her true form, a massive silver-white wolf whose fur shimmered with ethereal light, whose eyes blazed like twin moons, whose very presence radiated ancient authority. Theron's war party stumbled back, fear scenting the air. Several of them whimpered, and then the Shadow Guard transformed, not into regular wolves, into their true forms, dire wolves, legendary beasts, each one easily twice the size of the largest alpha in Silvercrest's war party. Their eyes glowed with otherworldly fire, their fangs were long as daggers, their power palpable. 10 ancient guardians revealed in all their terrifying glory. Theron's warriors broke. Half of them fled outright, scrambling back toward the tree line. The others dropped to their bellies in submission, whining in terror. Only Theron remained standing, though his face had gone pale and his scent betrayed his fear. "Mercy," he said, the words scraping out of his throat. "I beg your mercy, matriarch." Alara padded forward, her massive form making the earth tremble with each step. She lowered her head until her glowing silver eyes were level with Theron's human form. When she spoke, her voice echoed in the minds of everyone present, the mental projection of a true alpha. "You rejected me when I was weak, cast me out to die, chose cruelty when you could have chosen compassion. Tell me, Alpha Blackridge, why should I show you mercy?" "Because," Theron swallowed hard, "because it is what a true leader does, because you are better than I am, better than I could ever be." Alara held his gaze for a long moment. Then she shifted back to human form, standing before him in a dress of woven moonlight that her magic had crafted. "I will grant you mercy," she said, "but not freedom." You will return to Silvercrest and you will make a proclamation. From this day forward, the old hierarchy is abolished within your territory. Omegas will be protected, not persecuted. Pack members will be valued for their character, not their birth rank. Those who object will be free to leave. You're rewriting pack law, Theron said, stunned. I'm restoring the old law, Alara corrected. The true law, before fear and pride corrupted it. You will enforce this, Theron Blackridge, or I will return and claim Silvercrest as my own territory. And believe me when I say you do not want me as an enemy. And my position as Alpha? Remains yours for now. Prove you can lead with wisdom instead of arrogance, and you may keep it. Fail, and I will replace you with someone worthy. Theron nodded slowly, the fight gone out of him completely. He could feel it now, the crushing weight of her dominance, the ancient power that marked her as something infinitely beyond him. To resist would be suicide. Selene, who had shifted back to human form and stood clutching her bruised throat, glared with impotent rage. This isn't over, she hissed. Alara turned her silver gaze on the woman. For you it is. You are stripped of your rank, Selene Nightshade. You will leave Silvercrest territory and not return for 10 years. If you do return, it will be as a pack member of lowest rank, and you will serve with humility or not at all. You can't. I can, Alara said simply. I am the matriarch. This is my territory now, all of it. Every pack within 500 miles falls under my protection and authority. Those who honor the old ways will find me a fair and just ruler. Those who cling to cruelty will find me uncompromising. She raised her voice, letting it carry to every cowering wolf. I am Alara Winterthorn, the matriarch reborn. This valley is my seat of power. You will spread word of what you've witnessed here. The old order is gone. A new age begins. And any who need sanctuary, any who have been cast out or broken by unjust laws, may come to me. I will protect the weak, I will shelter the lost, and I will hold the powerful accountable. Her eyes blazed with silver fire. This is my declaration, this is my law, and this is my territory. The words resonated across the valley, carrying on the wind, spreading like wildfire through the psychic channels that connected all wolfkind. Across the region, alphas and omegas alike felt the shift, a fundamental change in the balance of power. The matriarch had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. 3 months later, the valley had transformed. Where there had been only ruins, now stood a thriving settlement. Wolves from every pack had come, some seeking sanctuary, some seeking purpose, all welcomed. The ancient buildings had been restored, new structures built. A council hall stood at the center, where Alara held court and dispensed justice with wisdom that belied her young years. Silvercrest had changed, too. Theron, humbled and genuinely trying to reform, had implemented Alara's laws. Many had resisted at first, but when 3 alphas from neighboring packs challenged the new order and were soundly defeated by the Shadow Guard, resistance crumbled. Omegas no longer cowered. Betas found their voices. Alphas learned that strength came in many forms. Alara stood on a balcony overlooking her growing territory, Kyle at her side. His hand rested on her waist, a comfortable intimacy born of mutual respect and deepening love. Your parents sent another letter, Kyle said quietly, asking forgiveness, offering to serve. I know, Alara's voice was soft. I've read it. Will you forgive them? Someday, perhaps. Alara leaned into Kale's warmth. But not today. Forgiveness must be earned, not given freely. They have a long road ahead if they truly wish to atone. Wise, Kale murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. Below them, children played, mixed packs, Omega and Alpha cubs tumbling together without regard to rank. It was a sight that would have been impossible just months ago. The blood moon rises in 2 weeks, Nick said, approaching from the doorway. The seers say something is stirring. An old evil awakening. Alara nodded, unsurprised. She'd felt it herself, a shadow on the edge of her awareness, ancient and hungry. Then we'll face it, she said simply, together. The Shadow Guard, who had gathered behind Nyx, nodded as one, her found family, her chosen pack. You've come so far, Kale said, his golden eyes warm, from a girl who thought she was nothing to the queen who rules with justice and compassion. I had good teachers, Alara replied, smiling, and I learned that strength isn't about dominating others. It's about lifting them up, protecting them, fighting for those who can't fight for themselves. The old matriarchs would be proud, Magnus rumbled from the back. Alara turned to face them all, her guard, her friends, her family. Then let them watch from the spirit realm, because we're just getting started. She transformed in a cascade of silver light, her massive wolf form magnificent in the fading sunlight. Her howl rang out across the valley, not a challenge, but a promise. We are here. We are strong. We are ready. And so, Alara's journey, from rejected Omega to matriarch queen, reached its first milestone. She had transformed in every way that mattered. She had found her power, her purpose, her people. She had learned that love could be chosen, that family could be found, that strength came from compassion as much as from force. The old order had fallen. A new age had begun, and whatever challenges lay ahead, blood moons and ancient evils, political machinations and personal trials, Alara would face them not as a victim, but as a leader. Not alone, but surrounded by those who chose to stand with her. She was no longer the girl who crawled into a barn to die. She was the matriarch, the queen of wolves, the harbinger of change, and her reign had only just begun. Thank you for listening to Alara's transformation. If you enjoyed this story of rejection, rebirth, and rising power, please like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and share it with others who love powerful werewolf tales. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of the Matriarch Saga. Because when the blood moon rises and ancient darkness stirs, Alara and her shadow guard will need every ounce of courage and power they possess. What do you think will happen next? Will Alara reconcile with her parents? Can Theron truly change? And what evil awakens beneath the blood moon? Share your theories in the comments below. We'll see you in the next chapter.